Long ago, the world was underwater except for one mountain. When waves came, they would touch the tails of the birds. Sun said, "I don't like to see that much water. I will dry most of it up. Then all kinds of animals will come to the world and speak the Paiute language." Sun sent a messenger to the people, saying, "Go to the mountain and stay there. Any living creature that comes to the world after the drying of the water will be your relative."
A long time ago, during the last ice age, an enormous lake covered much of western Nevada. Then the earth warmed and the lake's waters began to recede. Eventually, only smaller lakes and scattered marshes remained. Some were fed by rivers and creeks that flowed out into the desert and sank into the earth. The Carson Sink was one such area. Its sloughs and marshes became home to a band of northern Paiute people, our ancestors. Centering their lives around the abundant resources of the wetlands that are today called Stillwater, they were known as Toidekara, or cattail eaters. For countless generations, our ancestors lived in balance with nature. Then white people began moving in, and everything changed.
The Creator put us here. We were created just behind me. There's the range of mountains, Stillwater Range. And there's a peak there called Fox Peak. Over the ridge, there's a granite standing there with the water at the base. They call that our father's drinking place. And from there we all settled into here. The Creator put everything here. You know, all the food and the water and everything else. And then He put us here. Then He gave us the knowledge to know which was food and which wasn't. And what materials to get from the plants to make things to process your food. In our way of life, everything is real sacred. Everything has a spirit, whether it's up in the sky or the ground, or the water. The storm, even the heat itself. Like the animals, they have spirits too. you talk to them. You always pray. So it's a real sacred life, I mean, to really live it. My mother always prayed. It doesn't matter where she goes, she's always talking to the spirit. And she's always into herbs, for medication. And the old people, they always talk about how it used to be. At that time, people just stayed out here, on the water's edge or wherever you lived. Your thoughts wasn't anyplace else. You live here, and that's it. There's no other place. Well, there were a lot of people at that time, so you had a lot of camps. Yeah, the tules that we made for our houses came from the marsh here. You wove baskets out of the tules to make a bag to carry your eggs. They had duck eggs, mud hen eggs, all kinds of eggs. The tule I was telling you about, the food that you eat, the bottom part where it's white, you eat that. And then on the cattail, it's the same thing, that the bottom part is white. You eat that. And then from here we'd go up to Fox Peak, over on the other side to get pine nuts. That's how they survived for thousands of years. Everything changed when the white people came. You kind of settled around where the ranches are, and you worked in the ranch. They didn't know nothing about money then, because they had stores, things in the stores, and then you couldn't have those unless you had money. And the only way you could get money is by working for the ranchers. You had to change your lifestyle completely. It's a totally different way of life to live. It was hard. I mean, you change from, you're used to gathering food all the time by yourself, and you didn't have to pay nobody for anything. You just process your food and gather your food. Now all of a sudden you had to pay for something, and that changed everything.
Marsh kamadaiva o ya masi amaka puni sas manama Marsh muriakiapa sidaga o ka madaipa mayena yashi uhure amaka maraiva puni Most used to be a lot of Indians all over through this valley, and they saw many a wagon train. And anyway, the whites, I don't know how they ever managed to come through these long deserts. And they get thirsty and they have to look forward to water. If there was an Indian that they could meet, and ask them, because they knew more about the valleys and where they could get water. He didn't know what they were talking about because the Indian couldn't understand white. So he had to motion, the white, because he knew he couldn't understand, so he motioned to them by getting water. In the beginning, they didn't know what they were, because they were white. They weren't Indians. And they said they could see the bonfires at their camping ground when they camped that night. The Indians didn't like it, but what could they do? They could either be mean and destroy them too and try to fight with them, because that's what they did too to them. And then when they came this 40-mile desert here, they got real thirsty, I guess, and some were starving. And I imagine they suffered as, whatever they had to go through, and discard part of their luggages or furnitures or whatever they carried, throw them to the side so the weight will be lighter, I might imagine. And so they did that to survive. My grandpa tells us that he used to come out searching the desert, and looking for different things, and plus hunting too. They hunted a lot of ducks, and duck eggs and all that stuff. So he ran onto this trail, this wagon train trail, and that's where he found, going through the stuff that he saw, he picked up these little purses, which was the women's that carried these purses, I imagine, and then he looks into these purses and find different things. Then he find this and these gold watches. He found several of them, in fact, but he used some and then probably wore some out. And so this is what he found, and let's see what else it had in little ribbons. I don't know what they would use these for. Maybe for watches. Watches, probably hang watches on. See, because it has this little clips on there. So whatever it was, that's what came with these purses, and some little shirt cuffs or something, but they're pretty. Yeah, so that was in this. I don't think this one, oh yeah, this has just a little sewing string in here. And that's the way that looked on the inside. Yeah, so anyway, that's what I saved. And if they could only talk, huh? Tell their story, what they've been through and who they belong to. I'm sure they had a rough time, Well, they had to have a lot of bounces and bumps and what have you, and, to go over little hills and make way to get across. When they see all these roads that the Indians made, trails, that's how they started to make good highways, and now we get from one place to the other in just a few minutes.
My family came over from Reese River years ago, probably in 1929 or 28, round in there. They heard about the Shoshone land allotments that were being distributed here on the Fallon Reservation. And so a lot of the people, moved out of the Reese River area and the other areas where they used to live. A lot of them migrated this direction because they had no land over there before. They were just drifting here and there wherever the jobs were on white farmers' ranches and miners, doing work for the miners, wood cutting and housekeeping and washerwomen. That's what they did. Because the Indians used to just roam. The Shoshone stayed in the Shoshone area and the Paiutes in their area, but they roamed kind of here and there. Depending on the season, they'd stay in certain areas. So you're limited to the areas you could go because private property, and the Shoshone people were very happy to even have allotments here. When they opened the reservation up for the Shoshones, I never thought how the Paiutes would actually feel when the Shoshones did come in. But I know there was some resentment just in the way the folks used to talk and say things. They did learn to live with one another because of the agent man, and they had different ones throughout the years, and they brought them all together to teach them how to do things together and better their lives. Well, you have to go to school with each other and everything, so that's what they did. The kids had to go to school with them up here. So that's where my family made their home, and that's where we were raised around there. My mom and everybody just sort of married into the Paiute families here, so that solved the problem of anything there if there's any conflicts. Down on this end and then over that way, the Shoshone allotments were allotted to the Shoshone people. But they were big sandhills at the time, with big sagebrush and everything on there. And, at that time, it must have been awful hard for them to even imagine they're going to get that sandhill down. Nothing there. They had to build ditches. But they managed to do it, and it was a lot of hard work and sweat, and the whole family pitched in, and they got it done. The Indian Bureau in Stewart at that time, they sent down Indian agents to live on each reservation. And at that time, they were encouraged to teach Indian people to be farmers. So that's where they started all getting into farming. They came in with a program for cattle also at that time, and got them into ranching, into the cattle business. so that they can, just provide for their families and make a good, decent living. Everybody grew turkeys and everybody had chickens and pigs. Dairy cattle for butter, and they even sold those too, to the milkman, and they made their own butter and cottage cheese and things like that. And they had chicken all the time. People had chicken every Sunday, really. They butchered one day and then they'd have that. And their pigs, they'd have bacon and their own ham and everything out of that. They did just fine, and in the summertime, most of them had gardens, nice gardens. I remember their corn was just, grew real, very high. And they had everything they needed, potatoes and onions and melons. A lot of that is gone now. Hardly anybody has any of that. It's easier to go to Raley's now than to, I guess, mess with the trouble of gardens. But gardens is a good thing to have. Ranching is tough business too. It's a lot of hard work, and it can't provide for 2-3 families, even if you have 300 acres, because it's just not enough these days. The expenses are a lot, and equipment costs are a lot. But for one family, you can do pretty fair on there. Well, I just don't know what farming is in the future. I don't know what it holds. With all the politics and water problems this whole valley is having, and with the drought years now, it doesn't help either. So I just don't know. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I love farming, and I've been with that all my life, and I hate to see it go, but I have my doubts at times if we're even going to have our cattle, very far down the line. And farmers, as far as the farming goes, I don't know where we stand on that because of the water situation.
When I was born, there's a ceremony that people do when you have a newborn baby, and my father took my umbilical cord when it dried, and he put it up in a tree, and he prayed, and he asked God, the Creator, I would grow up to be strong, like the tree, and I would be a good hunter, provider. I think he offered money and maybe tobacco, and then he took a bath, and his prayer did come true, because I've learned to be a good provider for my family. And the main part is I learned how to share with others.
How come, Kenneth? Put your arm out.
Even when I was a young boy, I remember people donating duck or deer meat, other hunters giving it to my grandmother and my mother, and they'd cook it for us. And I always respected how that was when somebody donated food towards somebody that didn't have somebody to hunt for them. So while I was growing up, that's what the people did, was they shared with us. Okay, now be careful. This is my friend. So made up my mind that I'm going to do the same thing for other people when I get old enough to hunt and share for somebody else. This is my favorite place. I try to come here. This is a mallard male drake, I think they call it. Anyway, he's got a tule body, which will make him float. And I wrapped him with the mallard ducks. I skinned him like a rabbit, and then I wrapped his the body with it, and then I put this cottonwood stick in here to support his head. And what I'll do is I'll go and set him in place. I use my own decoys when I'm hunting ducks. When I was 7, 6, I think that's when I shot my first rabbit. And after I killed my first rabbit, my grandmother, Florence Smith, she explained to me first thing we did was we took out the gallbladder, and she prayed over it, and she showed me how to skin a rabbit, take the guts out, and we gave away my first rabbit to a neighbor. Ever since then, I started hunting with other men, going on rabbit drives. The big treat all the time was hunting and fishing. All I gotta do is wrap tules around my decoy. Before the settlers came, before the Indians were wearing clothes, they wore rabbit skin blankets and buckskin. There's only one way to survive out here, and that's to use what you have. So the buckskin has been among the Indians for years, and it protects you so well. While it makes me sad in a way when I see pictures of the Indians wearing canvas pants or gunny sack clothes, I know the value and the importance of how a buckskin is and rabbit skin blankets, and it's still, even from my own use, it's what I know. It's true. Hunting ducks, what I do is I set our decoys, and then I just park myself and wait. Anymore? While I'm sitting in my duck blind, waiting for the ducks to come in, I usually pray or I make decoys, and then I sit in here and think about all my friends that I've hunted with in my past. When I was these boys' age and a little older, they were all older guys, and they're gone today. So while I'm out here hunting, I think about them. I even talk to them sometimes because they're here. There's been a lot of Indians doing different things out here. The older people from back past, they've made foot tracks here, they've done things here, picked tules and hunted. This is a very valuable place, especially to me. I like being outdoors. I like when I'm sitting out here, a lot of times a golden eagle will come by and chase ducks to me. These animals have their routine, and I like being a part of this. A lot of times I learn things from the animals, and that's where most of my experiences came from, was learning from seeing a certain animal do a certain thing, and it happens that way in real life. All the experiences I've had hunting, it's helped me, and I'm going to pass it on to my whoever I can if they're interested. A lot of people know that I hunt a lot, and there's a lot of people that respect me for it, and there's a lot of people that are thankful for the hunting that I have done in my past, and hopefully it'll never end. We'll always have this area, the marsh, to do what we're doing today, and that's it.
Today, the Toitikuta and the Western Shoshones who now live among us are members of the Phelan Paiute Shoshone tribe. Our homeland has been settled and developed by non-Indians, and our lives are greatly changed. Yet, we cherish the traditions of our past and gather to celebrate them, even as we create new traditions for Indian people today.
Yo